Hello and welcome to the Political Opinions podcast, where every opinion is given equal footing and political tolerance and debate are given their proper attention in a world where both are on the decline. Today's episode will look at the different opinions regarding Trump's lack of concession so far following his defeat in the US presidential election. Following the presidential election on November 2nd, 2020, it has been reported that Joe Biden is set to win and currently stands at 290 electoral seats compared to Donald Trump's 232, and has received a reported 79.5 million votes compared to Donald Trump's 73.6. As a result, there have been calls from many sides for Trump to concede defeat and begin the transition to the next presidential administration. Trump, however, has refused to concede as of yet, and is claiming that the reason that he has lost was because of voter fraud in the election. This episode will not go into depth into the actual claims of voter fraud, as I don't really want to go in there, and I've already looked at it a little bit, and essentially will rather focus on the opinions regarding the lack of concession itself and any potential consequences of this. The aim of this episode will not be to try and argue for or against Trump's lack of concession, but rather to highlight the different opinions regarding the issue and provide a comparison between them. I will begin with the arguments that Trump should not concede, followed by the arguments that he should, with a comparison at the end. The main argument that Trump should not concede stems around the viewpoint that he has not in fact lost this election. Firstly, Trump and his supporters have repeatedly claimed that the results of the election cannot be trusted. This is backed by a number of different arguments, claiming that there are voting irregularities, dead voters listed on ballots, machine glitches changing who voted for who, the fact that Republican counters weren't allowed to view the actual counting process, and just a general feeling that what Trump calls the left has rigged the election against him, and if it were only legal votes and fair votes, then he will, in fact, win this election. From this, Trump claims that he will not concede because the results of the election are unfair, and once it is proven he has in fact won, then he will remain in office, and as such conceding is pointless and would only allow the biased left to win. This is furthered by Trump's claim that he has only lost in the face of the biased left-wing media, and that in reality this election is far from over. He has argued that the calls for him to concede are all members of the left trying to steal the presidency from him, and as such he won't concede and will fight back. Trump has also pointed to the fact that he should not have to concede yet. He argues that Hillary Clinton spent weeks after the election supporting recounts and seeing what she could do, and as such, Trump is arguing he is simply doing the same. And he will not concede yet, because it will again be proven that he has won. Furthermore, countering claims that he should concede and allow Biden to attend important meetings and begin the process of transition, Trump has argued that there is no point allowing Biden to attend, given that he will not become president once the truth is exposed and Trump himself remains in office. Given that Trump and his supporters believe there will be no change in administration, they argue Trump doesn't need to concede and doesn't need to allow Biden to attend anything. Trump's arguments ultimately rest on the belief that in time the truth will be exposed, and that when it does he will remain president, and calls for him to concede early are only an attempt from the biased left to force him out of office unfairly. On the idea that Trump should concede, firstly, people opposing Trump's actions argue that he is wrong about there being voter fraud. Currently, Trump has not had a successful lawsuit supporting his claims of voter fraud, and there are many examples of evidence to suggest that this election was in fact secure and legitimate. As a result of this, Trump has already lost in the eyes of many people, and should concede the presidency now, given that he is going to lose anyway once the electors vote on the 14th of December. It is also argued that by not conceding, he is breaking precedent and acting in a way that is not befitting of a democratic leader. He lost the election to people who hold this viewpoint, and as such, he should do what is right in the eyes of democracy and concede the election, and stop trying to hold on to power. Some have in fact argued that Trump's actions are along the lines of autocratic leaders in other states, and that what he's acting not only undermines democracy, but makes himself appear even worse to some than he already does. Furthermore, Trump's claims that the left are the only ones who say he has lost is proven wrong by the fact that numerous Republican senators, congressmen, and others have all said that Trump has lost. And that is proof that it's not just the left who are arguing that Trump has lost, but given that people in his own party and many important senators have also said that Trump has lost and should concede, that is proof alone that it is not simply a left-wing, biased conspiracy, essentially, to force him out of office unfairly. By not allowing Biden to attend important meetings, it is also argued that it is going to harm his ability to act effectively once he takes office in January if he is not kept up to date with the most important and relevant information. This is especially critical regarding the response to the coronavirus, as by not being present at any important meetings or decisions, Biden cannot work as closely with the institutions of government that he will be controlling once he takes office in January. And as such, by Trump not conceding, it is going to cause problems for America in the long run, and is actually being harmful to the nation as a whole, not just to Biden himself. And finally, some believe that Trump's actions just prove that he is doing anything possible to hold on to power, and that his refusal to concede is simply another showcase of this. Moving on now to the comparison. Firstly, on the idea of voter fraud, Trump and his supporters have claimed that he won't concede because the results of the election are fraudulent. It is not fair, he didn't in fact lose when you only look at legal votes, and as such there was no point conceding. Those on the other side, however, argue that the election was fair, and that Trump did indeed lose, and as such he should concede and begin the process of transition. On the idea of this left-wing conspiracy or a biased left or any kind of ideas around that, Trump and his supporters have claimed that the left are using their conspiracy to claim that he has lost, and that they are trying to force him out of office, and that he has in fact won, and they are essentially perpetrating fake news and just trying to get him out of office when he should in fact stay. Well, there's on the other side to say that Republicans have also said he has lost. There are people on both sides arguing this, and as such, there is sufficient examples to prove that it is not just a left-wing conspiracy, furthering this idea that, again, the election was fair for these people, and as such, he should concede. Then on the issue of the evidence, what does it point to? Trump is claiming that it will be revealed that he has in fact won, so conceding will not do anything because he's going to stay in office regardless. However, those on the other side will say Trump's lawsuits haven't worked. They haven't had sufficient evidence to either be heard further or to have enough evidence to essentially say they're going to win. And as such, he will at some point, have no choice but to leave. And as such, it is better for him to concede now. Then on the idea of the transition, Trump is claiming that there is no point allowing a transition to occur yet, because ultimately there won't be a transition. There's no point allowing Biden to attend meetings because Biden won't be attending them because he won't be becoming president. However, those opposing him have argued that Biden is going to become president, and it is harmful to Biden's effectiveness to not allow him to be present, and it is also harmful to America on the wider issue, for example, the fact that the response to coronavirus may not be as effective as if Biden were present at meetings right now. Overall, Trump's refusal to concede rests on the argument that the left has rigged the election and are trying to force him out of office, and he won't concede because once the evidence proves that he is right, he will simply stay. Opponents, however, argue that he has already lost, and the lack of concession is harmful to America and shows he is doing whatever he can to hold on to power. Ultimately, though, assuming none of Trump's claims and lawsuits are proven right or successful, once the electors cast their votes on December 14th, and most likely vote for Biden, Trump will have no choice but to step down from office. Until that point, however, it appears he will continue to defend and argue for his viewpoint, and most likely will not concede until he has no choice. What do you think on this issue? Do you think Trump should concede or not? And is there anything that I missed, got wrong or could do better? Let me know in the comments or on Twitter. And be sure to check back on Monday for the different opinions on the Israel-Palestine situation, which will be a divisive one, to say the least. But anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you all soon.